Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunday school today. Sorry I was a minute late. I was getting my coffee. So why don't you get your coffee? Oh, wait, you don't drink coffee. So why don't you get your hot chocolate or an apple? How about a bagel? Or my favorite, some yogurt. Or grab your cereal and follow along today as we talk about talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I might have to get up in a minute and let my dog out because he gets freaked out when I start talking to the screen. I don't know why. I mean, I do it every Sunday, so he's growling over here. I think I might have to go and let him out. So just give me 1 second because Mark isn't here. He's up at church because he has sound at the second service. So I'm here by myself, so I gotta let the dog out. Hold on. You going out, bud? There you go. Okay, so I left the door open so he can come back in by himself. So if you want to, like I said, go get your breakfast, come on back, bring it on back. So good morning to everybody. How are you today? Everybody doing well? Good. I'm having a good day too. We already took the dog for a walk and it's a beautiful day out there. A little chilly, but it's going to be fun if you want to get out there and play. Well, good morning. Oh, cool. Very cool, girls. Watching some videos on Martin Luther King Jr. That's really cool. I was trying to figure out how I could play one for you guys. Connor's here. Hi, guys. I was trying to think of a way I could do it, but I'm not like a tech person, so I thought you can go watch your videos on your own. So good idea, girls. So like I said before, go get your breakfast items, go get your coffee or your hot chocolate and join us. So we were talking about how everybody's doing. Did you have a good week at school? As you can see, I am home. I'm not in Pittsburgh. I'm not up at church. I'm home. So last week, let me see. Last week, I was up at Pittsburgh. That's right. And I went to the Steelers game. It was freezing. But if you've ever been to a professional football, baseball game, anything like that, usually the stadium is really crowded. But the freaky part was Mark and I went up to the concourse and there was like nobody there. In fact, usually there's a line for the bathrooms. I was the only one in there. It was kind of weird. So, and then even when we got into the stadium, it was really weird. There was nobody sitting around us, which was kind of fun, but it was hard to cheer. And the Steelers really needed some cheering on, which, oh well. Next year we'll do it. Next year. So I've been busy this week. You guys are probably busy at school. I've been busy at church. And believe it or not, I'm getting ready for Easter. Can you believe it? We just had Christmas, right? But do you remember the Advent bags I put out in my room? It had all those really cool activities for you to do each day for Advent. Well, I'm putting together Lent bags. And I'll let you know when they're ready, but it's going to be, Lent is actually the 6 Sundays before Easter. Isn't that neat? So we're looking ahead already. And I'm getting activities together that you can do as a family to get ready for Easter, for Lent. So I will let everybody know when those bags are ready. But I can tell you there's some really neat activities in there, some fun cooking activities. And yeah, I think you're really going to enjoy them. So that's what I've been doing this week. So I'll let you know when they're ready. So are you ready for today's lesson? I already told you that it's going to be about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because tomorrow is the day we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King. I know you don't have school tomorrow, and let's get into it. Do you know who Dr. Martin Luther King was? He's died. In fact, he was killed violently. But do you remember who he was? Had you learned that in school yet? So he was a civil rights leader. So you want to know, what was that, Miss Beth? What is a civil rights leader? So it's a person who stands up for the rights of people, for the things that people should have and should have normally every day. So he stands up for those people. He gave them a voice in what should be right. So let me give you an example of a civil rights leader, okay, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So let's say that your principal at the school all of a sudden says, sorry, boys, you may not have gym class anymore, ever. Just the boys. Let's make it a little different. Just the boys with brown hair. It's really not fair, is it? So let's say you organize some of the kids at school and you get together and you talk about, do you think this is fair? It's not fair. Boys with brown hair, they should have the right to have a gym class, right? So let's say you, as the leader, go to your principal and you sit down and you talk and you say, hey, I don't think this is fair. There's other kids who don't think this is fair. Why is this going on? And the principal won't budge. He's like, nope, boys with brown hair, no gym class. So then, very peacefully, you get like a piece of paper and you go around to all your friends and you say, do you agree with this? And they don't agree with it. And they sign their names to the paper. And you take it back to your principal, still won't budge. So then you, being the leader, will maybe make some posters that say, all people deserve gym class. And maybe you hang them up in your school. And if it still doesn't work, maybe all the kids that believe in this go in front of the gym doors and they stand there while other kids are having gym class. And so it's called a protest. Well, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was very famous back in the 50s and the 60s, 1950s and 60s, which is a long time ago. He was very famous for saying that all people should be treated alike. Everybody should be treated fairly. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. was a Black man. He was a father. He was a husband. He was also a minister. He was a Baptist minister, and he preached in a church down in the South. And he is very, very famous for using nonviolence, just doing peaceful demonstrations to create change. He thought that the laws should be changed. Back then, years ago, Black people, could not go in certain restaurants and they could not ride the bus, or they had to sit in the back of the bus. And I bet if you're watching videos, Fiona, if you're watching videos, you will see different things that had happened. Now, he's also famous, even though he made lots of speeches. And one of the speeches we know that's famous is called I Have a Dream speech. You can look that up. You can Google that speech. And I have to tell you that when I was writing this Sunday school lesson, I printed out the speech. I've never read it all the way through, and it's very interesting. So you guys are probably a little too young to read the whole way through and understand it, but mom or dad could probably read with you and explain what is going on in his speech. Now, one of the very famous, which really tugs at my heart because it involves his kids, but one of the famous parts of that speech, he says, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character, who they are and what's in their heart and what they do. And that's what Dr. Martin Luther King, he really stood up for equal rights for all people. It doesn't matter what people's skin looks like, or what nationality they are, or what country they're from, or what religion they are. Everybody should be treated equal. And sadly, that is not always the way. Now, I have a Bible reading that I want to read to you today, and it comes from the book of the Bible of Samuel. And it's Samuel chapter 16, and it's verse 7. Now remember, this is coming right from the Bible. So listen. It says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, 'Do not consider how handsome or tall he is. I have not chosen him. The Lord does not look at things people look at. People look at the outside of a person, but the Lord looks at what is in the heart.'" Wow, that comes from the Bible. God doesn't care what you look like on the outside. He cares about what's going on in the inside. He just looks at that person's heart. Now, we serve a God who looks at our heart, not our skin. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the day tomorrow, is a day that we reflect and remember and rejoice that God made us. He made all of us, and he loves all of us. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. led 8 peaceful protests. And I don't know if you know this or not, but Pastor Bob, his dad, who was also a minister, marched in one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s protests. Isn't that really neat? Where a bunch of people got together and they said, this is not right. People should be treated equally. But isn't that cool that Pastor Bob's dad did that? I think that is so awesome. Really awesome. Someday when we get back together in church, ask him about that. I bet he could tell you the whole story. So Martin Luther King Jr. believed for peaceful demonstrations, and he was hoping that these peaceful demonstrations would change people's mind about hate. There are some people that just hate other people because of how they look. They don't even know them, but all of a sudden they decide that they're going to hate them, and they see them as an enemy. I want to read to you another verse from the Bible, and it's Matthew 5. And it starts at verse 43. And it has to do about loving your enemies. Now, I bet you might have heard this one already. It says, remember, this is chapter 5 in Matthew, verse 43. Have you heard that it was said, love your neighbor, hate your enemy? But this is what I tell you, love your enemies. Pray for those who hurt you. Then you will be the children of your Father who is in heaven. He causes his sun to shine on evil people and good people. He sends rain on those who do right and those who do not. So again, the Bible, God is telling us that he treats people equally. If it's sunny over good people, it's sunny over bad people. And that we should love each other equally. And that we shouldn't hate our enemies, but love them and embrace them. I have another verse, and this is from Luke. Luke chapter 6, 27. It says, but here is what I tell you who are listening. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Have you ever heard of the saying, turn the other cheek? So if somebody is doing something wrong to you, ignore it and just love them. Maybe not love them, because that's really hard for us to do, but don't do something bad to them. Don't retaliate. It's right in the Bible. God wants us to love each other and treat each other the same, just as we would want to be treated. Would we want people to be mad and hate us all the time? I don't think so. So being a Christian means to love and care about all people, no matter what they look like, and to do nice things to them or for them. Now you're probably wondering, what can I do? What can I do to people who are mean to me? You might know somebody that's mean to you at school or mean to somebody, one of your friends at school. What can you do? Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of ideas. I bet you can think of some now too, now that we're talking about treating each other the same. So why don't you try being nice to them? So they're being nice or they're being mean to you, maybe teasing you or teasing a friend. Be nice to that person. You're going to really blow their minds away when you're nice to them and they're mean to you. They're going to be like, what's going on? Like, I don't get it. Why are you being nice to me when I'm all mean to you? Smile at them. Maybe in the morning, walk in with a big smile and say, good morning. Whoa, that's really going to confuse them, don't you think? Also, you can pray for them. Or maybe you can help them with something. Maybe they're struggling with a math problem. And maybe you can go over and say, hey, let me help you. Let me show you how to do it. Whoa, that would really confuse them, wouldn't it? Say something nice to them. So if they're being mean or teasing you, you can say something like, hey, you know what? I really like that shirt you're wearing. Or I really like your shoes. Something like that. It all starts with you. So if you're nice to people who maybe need a little help, maybe that'll turn them around and have them start being nice to you. Wouldn't that be pretty neat? So, in one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches, he says, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Think about it, the whole staircase. You don't have to see that whole staircase, only the next step. What does he mean by this? He meant that the whole problem of equality, of treating people equally, is not going to be solved all in one day. It's not going to be solved with one peaceful demonstration. It takes little steps at a time. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And it starts with you and it starts with me. And we just have to do it one little step at a time. Sometimes God just lets us see the next step. He doesn't let us see the whole picture. And we have to be faithful to God. We have to say, okay, God, here's the first step. Now what do I do? Okay. Now we can accomplish great things with greater equality and greater faith and greater justice. We need to have that faith. We need to know that we can do it with God's help. And if we are willing to follow God's light one step at a time, things like treating people equally will get accomplished. And it's been going on for so long, but we need to keep going. We need to keep climbing that staircase. And I have a story from our Spark Story Bible for you today, and it's short. So why don't you take a sip of your hot chocolate? I'll take a sip of my coffee. Here we go. It's called Love Your Enemies. Just like we were just talking about, what can you do to help those people that aren't nice, that don't treat people equally? It says Jesus taught people everywhere about God. Jesus' teachings were different from what people had heard before. This made people curious. They were curious about what Jesus had to say. One day, Jesus was talking about how to treat your enemies. Jesus said, if someone hurts you, don't hurt them back. Wow, that was different. Then Jesus said, if someone asks you for help, say sure. People hadn't always thought like that before. And remember to share what you have with other people. Jesus had people thinking. Then Jesus said a very important thing. Everyone says, love your friends and hate your enemies. I say, love your enemies and pray for people who are mean to you. This is what really makes God happy. The things Jesus said changed the way people thought about treating others. Here's the picture of people just loving each other and holding hands and helping. Doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what their skin color is. And that's what Dr. Martin Luther King Day is all about, is treating people fairly, not just tomorrow, but always. And peaceful demonstrations are the way to go. Let your feelings be heard, but do it peacefully. Let's bow our heads and say a prayer. Dear God, we thank you for Martin Luther King Jr. and his willingness to stand up for the truth. Help us to be brave like him. Help us to peacefully stand up for what is right and not to judge others by what they look like on the outside, but to love them for what is on the inside. And all God's children said, Amen. So in your email to your parents that I sent out yesterday, you're going to find 2 activities that you can do. One is the word search. Looks like this if you haven't printed it out yet. Oh, look, I found Martin and I found peace for you already. You can find the other words. The other paper was a coloring page and it says equality on it. And look, I started coloring it already. It's fun to do. So color that page, do your word search, and remember what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is all about. Okay? So before I end, I want to ask you guys, is there any Bible story that you haven't heard for a while or you think that we should read during Sunday school? If you have a favorite story or if you have some ideas, let me know. Have your mom or dad email me and just give me some ideas of some stories, okay? That's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to bring your stories into our Sunday school lesson, okay? So have a good week. Have a good day off at school tomorrow. And remember why you have that day off. Remember, try to do something nice for somebody. Maybe even say hi to a stranger or, well, you don't really want to go up to a stranger and say hello, but maybe give somebody a smile. Okay, we want you to stay safe out there. So have a good day, and we'll see you next week. Bye.